for generations of scholars and critics. Whatever these reasons might be, the fact remains that the Picts appeared in stories throughout his career, even while better-known or more popular characters played only briefly across the stage of his imagination. Certainly, this must be attributed, at least in part, to some strong sense of identification Howard must have felt with this people. But his conception of the Picts also stretches across a vast canvas, from the remotest recesses of a mythical prehistory to the modern era, and, though they are based upon a historical people, the conception is mixed with a bit of fantasy, so they could be made to serve in stories set not only in the historical past, but in the purely imaginary prehistory of Kull and Conan, and even in more modern tales based on the so-called Cthulhu mythos. Howard's first published story of the Picts, and his second story accepted for professional publication, The Lost Race, is set in the historical past, a period when the Britons have only recently displaced the earlier Gaels from the south of what is now England. The Picts here are the remnants of the pre-Celtic inhabitants of the Isles, a race that had migrated from the Mediterranean region during the Stone Age. In relating his race's history, the ancient Pict seems to suggest that they originated in Africa. This view of the race's origins is consistent with prevailing historical opinion in Howard's time, though then, as now, the term Pict was not generally applied to these Mediterraneans, as is the idea that they were driven underground, to caverns, or to dwellings called crannogs built on lakes, and that from them derived legends of little people. Howard's second complete tale of the Picts, though, is another matter. Men of the Shadows was turned down by Weird Tales in 1926, about a year after The Lost Race was accepted by the same magazine. Editor Farnsworth Wright complained that it is too little of a story. It is rather a chronicle of a tribe, a picture of the evolution of a race. The criticism seems just, but for those seeking to understand Howard's conceptions of the Picts, it is a very important tale. In this story, as in The Lost Race, we find the history of the Picts related by an ancient member of the tribe, in this case an unnamed wizard, but now it extends much farther into antiquity, beyond the bounds of what we consider history. Here we find our earliest example of what will become a Howard trademark, the idea of a vastly ancient, cyclical history of mankind, in which whole peoples undertake long migrations, surviving world-shattering cataclysms that destroy their hard-won cultures and hurl them back into savagery, whence they slowly, steadily make the upward climb until the next cataclysm. Men of the Shadows is also the first completed story of Bran Mak Morn, though we know of at least 2 earlier attempts to commit him to paper. Here, as in the earliest extant work in which Bran appears, the unfinished play Bran Mak Morn, we find him bound to his people by a sense of mission, the feeling that he must single-handedly lift them out of savagery. And even in these very early works, we find the sense of doom hanging over Bran's story. Suppose I do drag them a little way toward the goal. I will fall in battle, and they will back deeper than ever into the pit of barbarism. Author David Weber has suggested that this is one of the characteristics that makes the Bran stories stand out from Howard's other heroic tales. The brooding darkness which clings to virtually all of Howard's heroic fantasy is nowhere stronger than in the case of Bran Mak Morn, last king of the oldest race, an alien among his own degenerating people, set apart by a pure bloodline they no longer share, who knows his entire race is going down into the dark no matter what he does. Yet for all his awareness of the inevitability of the Picts' doom, Bran refuses simply to submit to it. I think it's the fact that Bran Mak Morn, more than any of Howard's other characters, sees the doom awaiting him so clearly, which makes Bran the quintessential Howard hero. For all of Howard's heroes share that refusal to surrender, yet few of the others are brought as inescapably face-to-face with the ultimate futility of their struggle. In Men of the Shadows, Bran is identified only as a chief, not king. At the time this story was written, the theme of kingship had not yet emerged in Howard's work. When it did, though, in the Kull stories, the Picts were there, but Bran was not. The Picts and Atlanteans in these tales both inhabit island shapes.